MJ here, and today I want to try out another game of Mayhem, and this is a solo war game for now. This player is traditionally played with, this game is played with two players, but I'm playing solo for today, just to test out the rules and continue to learn the rules and everything else. So this may not be a complete game, all right? But I do want to give this game a little more exposure, all right, and try it out. It really is a great game. One of the very important things in Mayhem is the cost of waging war, which is basically a resource management system that the game has in place. Command points are the most crucial thing in the game, and they really are the ones that restrict you or dictate what's going to go on in the army. The reason why I like that is that Mayhem puts a lot of emphasis on leadership. And so if you have heroes who will represent the captains, lieutenants, etc., and then you have your general, who's your main figure, all of those pieces will really dictate, how many command points you get, and how many, basically the cohesion of your army. And I really like that in a war game when leadership has that much emphasis, okay? In addition to that, there are standards, and I have a couple in the army, and standards also give you extra dice when rolling for command points, okay? So hopefully we'll see those things. That's a very important part of the game. I wanted to say that, but there's a lot of things. This game is a bit complex. It's a bit more complex than what I'm used to playing. But once you wrap your head around certain things, it really is fun, and it is a very in-depth game. And I do like that about it, okay? The second thing I want to say is a very important mechanic is the default versus danger, and that's called the versus mechanic. And that's basically a choice that you will be making for the most part throughout the game. And that choice is very critical, whether you do the default or the danger. Now, in order to understand the versus mechanic, you have to know that this game is based on dice types and not traditional stats. This game is different in every respect. So basically, I have a whole little pile there of all the different kinds of dice, D4s, D6s, D8s, right up to D20. And basically all your stats, everything is based on a dice type. So, having said that, the default is always half the dice, right? Half whatever dice you have. So if it's a D8, it'll be a 4. And you can choose that and not have to roll. And that's basically securing yourself. If you need a low number in order to pass something like combat, then, that will ensure, the default will ensure that you get a low number. Or you can go the danger way, which could give you an even lower number, or could give you a very high number, okay? And so that's the risk you take in danger. The target numbers for different things will vary. It will depend. In combat, you need the lowest number. The lowest number is the one that wins. Keep that in mind as you see things happening. My board. I'm sorry if the sun is coming through the big windows there. Okay, it's early in the morning, and here I am playing a game I really wanted to play. So, all right. So here's the new board that I restored. I'm happy with it. Okay, and I restored it and decided to play a little game of Mayhem. Okay, so for the goblin side, we have 2 infantry stands, and that's 1 and 2. And I have a little 2 marked on one of the shields there. Okay, and that tells me which one is 1 and 2. We have a unit of spearmen with the leader. He is a hero. Okay, remember, heroes and generals are very important in this game. So 1 hero there. We have an archer unit of orcs and goblins. They're all going to have 1 stat, even though they're mixed. There is the orc general. We have a unit of orc wolf riders with spears. And their leader is the guy raising the sword there. Typical guy raising a sword. they have spears as well. Weapons are important in this game as well, weapon types. And then we have Orc boar riders who are a little disorganized now, trying to get onto this makeshift bridge that the little goblin engineers made last night. And they haven't quite yet finished, but they can jump off into shallow water and get to the other side. The orcs are trying to flank the Gnoll army. By the way, these are two monster armies, okay? Gnolls and orcs and goblins versus gnolls and ratmen. Okay, then we have this dude here, and we don't know what he's doing. He's watching the battle very intently with his skeletal steed. We don't know what he's up to. He's not going to have any part in the game. He's just terrain. All right, and then now for my side, we have a unit of ratmen, archers. Okay, and this is a light, fast cavalry. And then we have a unit of Gnoll spearmen. There is my hero. There is my standard. Okay, and then we have a unit of warbirds. Warbird cavalry, and these are gnolls on giant predatory birds with spears. We have a Gnoll archer unit. They have longbows. By the way, the archers across the way, they also have longbows. That's very important. And there is a standard. So I have two standards, a hero and a general. And here is my general, who is actually a conversion. He's not a Gnoll, but I converted him, made his little cape. And now he is a Gnoll general. Okay. Then we have a unit of Gnoll Axers, who are a heavy support unit. Okay. They're kind of cute. And a couple of Gnoll Scouts, who are very intently discovering the orc attempts to flank the army. Okay, and so now for the board, we have a swamp here. We have a strange fungal forest. We have a lot of forest because these are the wildlands. These are the northern wildlands. And so there's a lot of forest. There's a huge cliff here that is causing a bottleneck between the river, and the cliff. So the river is impassable, of course, unless you go in very shallow water, and there's a bridge. Okay, and these orcs are not expecting that the gnolls. They didn't expect that the gnolls would be here right now. Okay, so they're still a little disorganized. You can see by the wolves. They're coming here from the north, and they're trying to squeeze in to this little bottleneck area, and the gnolls have just pinned them on that side. So they're going to want to come this way, and the gnolls are going to want to keep them there and start doing casualties. Okay, the only problem we're going to have is that over there, that bridge, so when they do cross. Okay, and I haven't decided, but that bridge may only last 2 turns because of the fact that the river is a raging river. There's a lot of current. Okay, so that bridge may only last there 2 turns. So, but good job, goblins. Not bad. And here I have all the stuff that I need to play the game, including all the different dice types. Okay. All right. And all my stack cards. I also have a randomizer for the Orc AI. These are a bunch of cards that I chose. And then I made this nifty, look at that nifty little table. Okay. And yeah, I got my Ace of Spades backwards. Oops. And basically that tells me, who gets to activate. And I'll use that if I need that, but I'm not always going to use it, okay? For now, I'm just going to activate whoever I think needs to be activated to respond to the situation. If I need a randomizer, then I have the cards, okay? Okay, so D8 is my leadership. That is the leadership that I bought for my leader while creating the army. I bought that with points. Again, we'll describe how to do the army in a future video. So that's 2, 3, 4. So 4 D8s, okay? And the Orc army also has a D8 leadership to make it easy. Now, whenever rolling, no matter how many dice you roll, you pick the best result. In this case, it's going to be the highest number. So I roll my 4 dice, and it looks like 7 is the highest number. So I have 7 command points. Not too bad. So I'm going to take my 7 command points. And that concludes the first step of the turn. Now that I have my command points, I need to move somebody. Now, command range in this game is 5 inches for me, and I have dumbed that down because normally it's 10 inches for infantry, but I am playing 15mm. So I halved it to 5 inches. So yeah, everyone here is in command range. The archers are just about in command range. And of course, these guys all the way here are not. And these guys are not in command range, but they have a hero already. So they're covered. They have their own hero with them, so they don't have to worry. All right. Well, I think I want to move my cavalry. I think that's the warbird cavalry, and I want to plug that bridge. So they're in command range. They don't have to worry about CP penalties, and CP is command points. That's what I'm going to use to describe them. So I'm going to make a move, and all units can turn up to 90 degrees for free. No payment. So we're just going to turn them 45 degrees, and then I want to make them here. Now I have to make a decision. Do I want the default or the danger? Now, you can always pre-measure in this game. So I have about 5 inches just to get to the bridge. And their movement is a D8. So if I take the default, it's only 4 inches. I'm going to be short. So I think I'm going to roll it and take the risk. So first things first, I need to pay for that movement. That's 1 command point. All right. And there's no penalty because my general is there. If my general wasn't there, I'd have an additional point of penalty. And I roll 4 inches. God damn. All right. That's okay, because in Mayhem, you can continue going. As long as you have command points, you can continue, give them movement, you can give them attacks, you can give them whatever you want. It's a very free system in that sense. So why don't I just keep these right there? They're all going to move there, but I want to continue giving them movement. Okay. Now I haven't activated them yet, so overdrive does not kick in yet. Now, however, okay, now I do have to move them because it is important, because they're out of command range. Okay, so I am going to move the rest. Not really. Well, yeah, let's move these properly. Command range is important, so we are going to move them properly. Okay, so now to move more movement points, and now I think I can take the default. I don't want to risk rolling a 1, so I am going to take the default. That gives them 4 inches of movement. All right, so my guys have moved, so now I'm going to give them an activation. So I called it. They're activated. If I decide to give them more stuff in the future, overdrive kicks in. And I don't think I'm going to be able to afford that. So I think for now, they're going to be, that's it. They're going to stay there. Okay. All right. So now it's an orc turn. Let's give the orcs some movement. We have 2 goblin infantry stands, and they see these warbirds coming up the bridge. And the goblins want to prove themselves. You know, the poor guys, they always have a bad rap. You know, they're not the greatest fighters. And so they want to prove themselves a bit. And we're going to pick this infantry unit. So I'm not going to randomize it. Goblin infantry. And they have a D6 move. Okay. Same exact procedure. So now I'm going to roll for the orcs. Let me see. Hero, general. I didn't give them a standard, but there is a hero over there. So 3 dice. And I'm just going to roll their 3 dice and pick the highest. They have an 8. So they had 1 more command point than I do. That's pretty damn good. So, and by the way, you don't have to use markers. You could use dice. Dice are probably easier to keep command points, track of command points. So let me just give them an 8. And, Now this is tricky. Now they are 5 inches away from a hero, and the hero does have command range, so they're okay. No penalties, so is the other one. They're not 5 inches away from the general, but that doesn't matter. There is a hero there. Okay, so no penalty for them. So they're going to use 1 command point. Puts them down to 7. And see, here's the thing. In this game, you don't have to attack, by the way. You can just go into base-to-base contact and engage and boggle down the enemy with the engagement. You don't have to actually attack. That's an interesting thing too. And then the enemy has to pay command points to disengage from you. So they're going to charge in though. Okay, so let's see how many. They need at least 3 inches. Their movement is a 6. So if they took the default, which they will make it to me because they have 3 inches. So they're going to take the default, and they already paid their charge. The charge costs 1. Now that is a movement. So now, because they're not infantry and they don't have any impact or anything like that, they're just going to have to pay for the combat. So 1 more command point goes down to 6 for the orcs, and now they can attack. All right, so we're going to see combat early. Now, the infantry is armed with swords, so they are soft counter versus other infantry, but they have no abilities against cavalry. If they were spearmen, they would be hard counter versus cavalry. All right, so they would be a lot more efficient. So I have to worry about those orc spearmen. Okay. All right, so nothing else, just checking my thing. They have swords, soft counter versus infantry, and that's it. So now for combat. So the goblins have to make a decision. They're going to be using their full combat quality. There's a D12. So basically, they would, if they take the default, it's a 6 for the goblins. Mine is a D10. So if I took the default, it is a 5, and I would automatically beat them. But I don't want to do, they're not going to do that. They're going to want to roll, okay, because they have such a high combat quality. So they're going to take the danger of rolling and really screwing things up. And they rolled a 7. Not good. So they have to keep that result. Oh, by the way, they roll another dice because they are the initiators of combat. And when you initiate combat in this game, you get an extra dice. So they do roll another dice, and they rolled a 12. They rolled a bomb. No good. So they're going to keep the 7. So now all I have to do to beat that is do the default, and I have a 5, and I win the combat. Now, since combat is simultaneous, this means that the goblins get a disorder marker because they lost. So that is called harm, doing harm to the unit. So I'm going to give them a disorder marker. They're also going to turn 360 degrees, and they're going to run away. The difference in inches between both rolls. So that's 2 inches. So they're going to run away 2 inches. Now, if they get hit again, because they have a disorder marker, they're out of the game. If I had rolled a 1, which is a reason to go for the danger roll. If I rolled a 1, I would have wiped them out automatically. Or they could have wiped me out. All right, so that's the end of combat. End of that. It was an easy combat because there's no hard counters or soft counters. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the defender does not have to pay for the combat. Only the initiator, the attacker, pays in command points for the combat, okay? Gnolls. And I do apologize for the sun again. It's on my back and it's like really hot. Okay, so I'm going to give it to my Gnolls. Now, first things first, my general's over here. My heroes got this area covered. The archers, there's no command range, so they're going to have to pay extra if they want to do anything. Then I have my heavy support all the way over here, and my scouts all the way over there. So my general starts the game separately, individually. All generals do. They don't start the game in units. So, but I can go into another infantry unit and take command of them. So I think because these guys have a hero, I'm going to push my general towards the heavy support and see if I can take command of them later. So, all right, so general's going to move. Now, general pays the points just like anyone else. 1 command point to move. And let's see, now he has a lot. He has a long way there. He has about 10 inches. Now, his movement is D6 because he's on foot. And I don't want to, if I roll it, I could get very, very low. And I'm going to have to roll it because I want more than 3 inches. So we're rolling a D6. I paid my command point, and I rolled a 6. Good. Okay. So that gets me much closer. So sometimes it's worth taking the risk. Now that moves him, his command bubble, out of range of everybody else, but that's okay because I have a hero here that'll cover me for a bit. So that's 1 movement. And I'm not going to call him. Yeah, see, if I use another command point, I'm going to give him another command point. Because we want to see what happens in rough ground. Again, this game is very, very different. All right, so he gets another command point. Let me see, 3 inches will put me right there. So I'm going to take the default. And the 3 inches is going to get me right on rough ground. Now, this whole area is 1 terrain. Even all these little things here. And the boulder field. It's all 1 terrain. It's all rough ground. Rough ground is treated differently. The way that I do it, there's 2 different ways that they suggest. One is by doing the danger roll, and I like using the default for rough ground. It's just a lot easier. We'll discuss that in a future video when we do the rules again. So I'm going to take the default because any other movement is going to only take the default because it's rough ground. So it's going to half to 3 inches. All right, that's so much easier. Okay, so now I'm going to call him activated. So he's on his way to take control of the heavy support unit. Once he joins the heavy support unit, he's in it for the rest of the game. If that unit dies, he dies with it. Okay. All right, so he's going there. Now it's the Orcs. Let's go to the Orcs. We're almost finished this turn. As I said, I may not do a full game. This will just be a little demo game for the channel. So these guys have been pushed back. So yeah, they couldn't really prove themselves. But now we're going to give it to the Orc Spearmen. They have a hero, so they don't have to worry about the command bubble. And he has spears. Now, spears are hard counter against cavalry. All right. So this could be potentially bad for me. They're about 5 inches away. They are D6 movement, so they want more. They're going to try to charge, okay? So let's see. Command point wise, it's only 1 command point to charge. And since they are infantry, they will have to pay for the attack. So let's just pay for it now. So that's 2 command points for the attack. And what am I doing? Because I have a D8 here. So 6, 5, 4. They have 4 left for the army. That's their budget now. Okay. All right, so let's see. They're going to take the danger roll because they need more movement. They need a 5 or a 6. And they get a 6. Look at that. Right on the edge of the bank. Okay. So they have more than enough movement, and they just charged in. Oh, by the way, a charge, that was incorrect. Let me just point that out. A charge is 2 dice. Not 1 dice, 2 dice. You roll for the charge, 2 dice, you pick the highest, okay? They're going to use an 8, okay? Okay, so they now fight with a D8. So they're better. So basically, they can take the default. If they take the default, it is a 4. That's pretty low. Remember, I have to roll under that. So my counter, I am soft counter versus infantry. But that is because of impact, or yes. Let me just check it, make sure it's not a trait of the cavalry per se. because if it's due to impact, I have to charge in order to get that bonus. But if it's a part of the infantry trait, cavalry, notice I said infantry for cavalry, and that's because cavalry is an upgrade of infantry. Okay. I cannot move lateral or backwards. I have both drive back and impact. Okay, we did the drive back thing with the goblins. All right, so it's because of impact that I have soft counters. So that means I cannot use that benefit because I didn't charge. So I'm just going to go regular with my CQ of D10, and that's not great. But it's not too bad. If I take my default, it's a 5. It's not enough. They are forcing me now to roll. That is the strategy in this game. All right, so I'm going to have to roll my D10 and risk it. Maybe I roll a 1. Oh my God, I rolled a 2. So freaking close. I could have wiped them out with 1 turn. So I win the combat. Okay? And in this game, when you do harm to infantry units, they get disorder markers. If they get hit again, that's it. They're out of the game. If you roll a 1, they're out of the game. So basically gave them a disorder. And now they have to turn around, and the difference between the units is the number of inches they run away. So they're going to have to squeeze through the goblins. They're not very happy. I do apologize, guys. My phone cut off. It's overheating. So I'm not sure how long I'll be able to do this today. It really sucks because I'm having fun with this game. But anyway, what happened was I rolled a 2. So very close to a 1. Could have wiped them out. So basically they get a disorder marker and then they retreat. Because of drive back, they retreat. If I didn't have drive back, they stay there. Okay, but because they have drive back, they retreat the difference between 2 inches. Okay, some units, some infantry, you can give them something similar to drive back, but not for cavalry. Comes with it when you upgrade an infantry unit to cavalry. Okay, so they're being driven back. All right, so I think the orc. Why don't we get the boars moving? I'm not going to randomize things. Let's get the boars moving. So the orcs, the boars are within command range. They have no heroes, so they are within command range of the general. So they are going to move across the bridge. That bridge is not going to last very long. So let us do this. Okay, so they have to pay for that movement. They are now down to 3 command points. And command points go very quickly in this game. And they're just going to move their default. They are, let me see, because boars are kind of slow. I made them a little bit slower. Yeah, they're a D6. They're not as fast as other cavalry, but they still have impact and all that good stuff. Okay. Of the bridge. All right, so they are moving across the makeshift bridge. So those goblins get cooties. They get some extra rations later because it was a good idea that they had to build that little bridge there. Now the bridge is anchored. There's little lines that go into the water, and so there is an anchor there, but those lines are not going to last long. All right, so the boar riders are trying to move across. 3 inches will get them to shallow water. And I use the frontage of the unit to determine. Okay. So 3 inches is actually going to get them up the bank a little bit. So they're crossing. Turn 1. And I'm going to give it to the archers. I only have 2 command points. So I'm going to purchase a ranged attack. And I do want this to be documented in the game, so takes me down to 1. Okay, and I'm just going to put this here to just remind me that I used a command point. Now, because they're so far away from the general, let's see if the hero, they're okay. They can buy that attack. Otherwise, it would cost me 2 command points, and basically that's all I have, and the turn ends for me. The Orcs still have to go, and I still have a few units to go that are not going to be able to move. Okay, so archers are going to fire. Now, ranged attacks are a little bit different. We have 3 stats to worry about in this game. Movement, BAR, ballistic armor rating, and CQ, which is combat. CQ is only for melee, and BAR is used during ranged attacks. Now, one thing about ranged weapons, they have 2 stats. They have the first stat, which is the rat, and that is the ranged attack number, right? So it's a D12 in the Ratman Cavalry. And the second number is the damage rating. That's what you use for damage, and that's what you're rolling against the bar, all right? Or your opponent's rolling his bar against that number. Okay, so we'll see how that works. So first things first, in order to determine whether I hit or not, we use the range to determine an effective range anywhere on the models. And there is a 6 inches. That's what I'm going to say. So the base range is 6. However, a couple of things come into play here. Here's where things get a little more complex. Yeah, the base range is 6, so my target number is 6. And for a longbow, by the way, the stats are D20, D20. So they have D20 for range attack, D20 for damage rating, okay? So, 6 inches. And the goblins are touching this terrain piece. Now, I'm considering those whole boulders are one terrain piece. In the game, you have something called defensive value. Defensive value pertains to terrain. It tells you how much cover that terrain provides, and it is a number. To make things easier, I make all the defensive value a 1, as long as it doesn't block line of sight. And I'm talking about like small pieces of terrain, scattered terrain. I give them all 1. Okay, so that's a defensive value of 1. So this little goblin is touching it, which gives it an additional defensive value. So if you're touching a piece of terrain, even if you're not behind it, but you're touching it, the idea is that they are moving around. They're probably just close enough that they can take cover behind the boulders. So that gives them a defensive value of 2 for the terrain piece. Any intervening terrain is also an additional defensive value. That gets added to the inches. That kind of sounds like Stargrave or Frostgrave in that sense. So, base was 6 inches. I'm adding 2 because of the defensive value of the terrain. So that's 8 inches. So now my target number is 8, not 6. So I take a D20. Because it's a longbow. It's not a short bow. It's a longbow. So, and I can take the default. I don't have to risk it. Now, I could risk it, maybe roll a 1, wipe them out completely. But I'm not going to. So I'm going to take the default of 10. That beats an 8 in ranged attacks only. When you're going to hit, it's always the higher number that you want. Okay? In melee attacks, it's the lower number. And that's a little confusing, I know. But that's it. Okay? And it makes sense. So you want to beat the range, not roll under the range. So, and if you roll, yeah, okay. So, oh, and by the way, they are the attackers. They don't get extra dice for initiating the attack either. Only melee units get, only melee gets an extra dice for initiating the attack. So that's another little complexity thing. Okay. So I do hit. Now the goblins take their bar, which is a D12. Not very good. Not very good, but okay. So they take a D12. Now if they take a 6 default, right? We're going to put that right there. I have to roll a D20. I got to get under a 6 in order to beat that. Now for the bar section, to see if I actually wound them, if I actually damage them, now I have to roll under. So in order to hit, I roll over. In order to damage, I roll under. Just like melee. Again, It's just one of the little complexities. So, ooh, I do have volley fire. All right. But anyway, in this situation, let's see. If I take the default, that's not going to help me because a 10 is over a 6. It's not going to help me. So I need to roll. So they're going to take the default, and I need to roll. If they win, there's no damage because it's a ranged attack. Only in melee can units damage each other. And I rolled a 7, which is not enough. Okay? Beat them by 1, so nothing happens. So I just wasted that attack. Now, if I wanted to, I could attack again, but I don't have enough command points because it would cost double. Actually, no, that's not true because it's not overdrive. It's not a, it's not an activation marker. So I'm going to spend my last point. Should I do that? All right, I'm going to leave them at that. They missed because the reason being, I'm going to mark them as activated. Reason being that I want to move these other, another one of these units, or maybe move the heavy support so that my general can take control of them. And there's also the guys over there. They have to ready. And that's why I want the general to take control of the heavy support, because I'm going to have to move that way to stop that cavalry. So, all right. Let's just leave it at that. So the orcs now take their turn. And they're really bottlenecked here. And that general's getting impatient. So I think the goblins are going to return fire. And they are the initiators this time, but that doesn't really matter in range attack, so let's do it again. They use their last command point, which means some guys are not going to get to move. Oh well. That's why the budget is very important to keep track of. Okay. And again, we know it's 6 inches. They have longbows, so they use D20. So the defensive value of the terrain is 1, and I'm touching it, so that's 2. So again, it's the same exact thing. They're going to take the default. A 10 beats an 8. Okay, so they hit. All right, so now I roll my bar, my defense. And Gnoll Archers are defense 12. Yikes. Not too good for the Gnoll Archers. So defensive 12 is a D12, and let's see, it's a D20 for the bow. So now the bow's gonna have to roll because they don't want to take the default on the damage roll because it's too high with a D20. So now let's roll that again. That wasn't a fair roll. They roll a 6. Okay, so they rolled a 6 for damage. That's going to be, I could still beat it. So I'm forced to roll for my with my bar, my defense. And I rolled a 10. No go. I take damage. I get disordered. Now, they don't have any drive back or anything, but I am damaged. If I get hit again, they are wiped out. So that's ranged attack for ya. Now let me check volley fire. We both have volley fire and see what happens. So here's something I just learned. So both the archer units have volley fire. Volley fire works the same way impact works in cavalry. So just learn that, and that's pretty cool. Basically, it makes the damage roll a lot easier. All you do is pick up 3 dice. You take the best of the dice, which in this case would be the lowest number. And if the unit damages the enemy, then they're driven back. Okay, so that's good to drive back when you want to push enemies away from objectives. They would get to drive back, and it would happen exactly the same way it happened in melee. So basically, volley fire is a way to give archer units the drive back ability. Okay, so just learn that. Pretty cool. All right, folks, so I'm going to have to start ending this. Unfortunately, phone is overheating a lot, and I do have an ice pack, but I have to constantly take it off, put it on the ice pack. So let's end this. Let's see what happens with the orcs. I'll make my closing comments, and then games like this will be on the Patreon as bonus material, so consider being a patron if you want to see bonus games that are not on the channel, etc., etc. And also my written scenarios and the homebrew stuff. All that is going to be in digital files for the second tier. So this particular scenario, I'm probably going to write up a document for. It'll be a PDF, and it'll be up on the Patreon second tier. And I'm going to suggest other games to play with this stuff. Okay, this is what I'm calling the bottleneck scenario. One army is going to be at a slight disadvantage because not everything in battle is nice and clean, and there are situations when armies are going to be in a really tight fix. Okay, so all right, well, let's just finish this up in turn 2, and I'm only going to do the little orcs there, and then we're going to do my closing comments, and that'll be it because I have some editing to do today as well. So all right, orcs are disordered. First things first, we're going to go back and do initiative. And orcs are black dice again, and orcs get a 5, I get a 6. So yeah, that's not good for the orcs because they needed that initiative in order to rally to take that disorder marker. Now they're in danger. Now here I have a decision to make. These are juicy targets. They're giving their back to me. They haven't been able to rally. I can use with my cavalry the impact and really take one of those units out. Probably the one in front. That's going to be a lot easier. The problem is that we have this little infantry unit here that's then going to attack my flank. When you attack the flank, you get another extra dice, all right, to your melee pool. I'm going to take it because it's a juicy ass target and they are disordered. So I'm going to risk it. Okay. And part of the battle is a risk. So let's risk it. Let me do my command points first. And I get 4 dice when rolling for command. If I can find all my dice command points this time. Out of all the dice, only 6 is the highest. So I'm going to take my 6. And when it comes the orc turn, they'll roll their command points. But I don't think I'm going to do the orc turn. Well, maybe I will. Okay, so they have... Their intentions are clear now. They're going to charge into the rear arc of that. That gives me 2 extra dice. That's why it's such a juicy target. Let's see. They are within command bubble of the hero, which is here. So heroes are very important. And that means the charge is not going to cost as much. I have 6 command points. I'm going to give them 1. Pay for the charge move, which is a 5. And because they have impact, they get an extra attack. They get a free attack without having to pay. So impact is very good. Okay, now they charged into a unit that is disordered. Good for them. Now here is where the combat pool is going to change. Now I'm going to get a good number of dice. Let's just put the models where they can stand best. First, it is a soft counter versus infantry because of impact. So instead of a D10, they get D8. Okay, that is going to be their combat dice now. They get an extra dice for being the initiators. Oh boy, 2 dice. They also get 2 extra dice because of the rear attack. That makes it 4 dice. And there was another dice here. That's it. Okay, I could be forgetting one, guys, but we're going to leave it at that. I mean, it's 4 dice. I could be forgetting one. I thought there was another dice. They get another dice for another reason. It's for initiating the attack. Okay, so I'm rolling my 4 dice. Now their combat is, they're not very good, so they're at D12. I take my lowest value, which is a 3. And notice that I did not the default, but I rolled. I wanted to see if I got a 1. I got a 3 though, so the goblins are forced to roll. Now, they are defending their rear arc. And if they were the initiators and they were trying to fight another unit, to defend that unit in the rear arc, it would cost them more. Okay, or to initiate a combat in their rear arc, it costs a lot more. Okay, let's see. Let's just make sure there are no other little things I'm forgetting. Yes, okay, so I'm attacking a disordered unit, which would have added another dice. I knew there was another dice. So because that unit is disordered, I added another, that would be a 5. So again, 5 dice. Okay, so you see how the combat, the CQ, the combat value had just exponentially increased in the number of dice. All because of attacking the rear and because the unit's already disordered, okay? So there is, everything here can exponentially rise. So the goblins are in a tight fix. If they lose this combat, they're out of the picture. They are forced to roll a 3. Well, what if they rolled a 1? Then I'm screwed. Even if I'm on their rear arc, doesn't matter. They rolled a 3. Look at that. Look at that. They tied the freaking combat. They tied the combat, which means nothing happens. However, if I were using deadlock abilities, those are special abilities you can give your units. Deadlock abilities, it'll tell you in the rules, trigger whenever there is an even result. So I'm glad that happened. I don't have any deadlock abilities, so nothing's going to happen. However, okay, so they don't get a disorder. That's right. They don't get a disorder marker, so they're okay. So they survive that. That really sucks. If they had lost this combat, they would get another disorder marker. They would be out of the picture. Unfortunately, no luck. Now these goblins are going to get to charge into my right flank. Okay, let's roll the command points real quick. I want to do this quick, do my closing comments, and get this video going. So they rolled 3d8. See, hero, general, that's 2. And they do have a stand. Oh, they have 3 heroes. That's right. Okay, so they roll a 4, unfortunately, this turn, 4 command points. That is their highest number. So they only have 4 command points. But, well, that might be all they need. I don't know. So now they're going to take their default movement because they're right there. Their default is 6, so 3 inches. So they're just going to move in with that free pivot. They're attacking my flank now, and then they pay the movement cost. Now, yeah, they are 5 inches within the hero, so they don't have extra penalty costs. Yeah, they're good. Okay, so from 4 it goes down to a 3. They bought, and this is a regular combat. It is not a charge. Okay, for a charge, I usually put the house rule that you have to be 3 inches away at least in order to get that momentum. Okay, that's a house rule. But, so they're not going to declare a charge. It's a regular movement. And then they have to pay another point to initiate the combat. And that happens in a charge also, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so base dice is a 1 attack. They are attacking my flank, so that's 2 dice. I am not disordered, and that's it. Now, if they take the default, they're fighting with a D12. A default is a 6. So they're going to roll it. They're going to try to get lower. And they rolled a 3. That's not good for me. So my defense dice is a D10. And that's it. Okay, I don't have, and I'm defending my flank. That doesn't really, that's not gonna, okay, they already got the bonus for the flank, so I have to roll under a 3. This could be bad. And I rolled a 5. Okay, I am disordered now. But I don't push back because they are infantry. So they do not, unless they have an ability to push you back, That's it. So I get disordered. So if I take one more hit, that cavalry unit is out. Okay, and I think I'm just gonna leave it there. All right. So what did we went over combat. In combat, the rolls should be simultaneous. Okay, first and foremost, they are simultaneous. You use your combat values, which is a dice type, not a number. You take into consideration things like hard counter and soft counter, which modify your dice type, give you a better dice, a lower dice. In combat, the winner is always the one with the lowest number in the dice, okay? So that's why hard counter and soft counter works. In ranged attacks are a little different. We saw that. Ranged attacks, you determine the effective range of the weapon. You take into consideration the weapon, just like you do in melee. And ranged weapons have two stats, the ranged attack dice and then the damage dice, okay? So you're doing the hit roll and the damage roll. In ranged attacks, you got to roll over the range, and range is modified by things like terrain, defensive values, okay? I put defensive value 1 all across the board to make things easier. If a unit is touching the terrain, they get an extra defensive value. If there's terrain in the way that's small, that doesn't block line of sight, they get a defensive value. And then you roll your attack. The number over the range is the one that hits. And then you roll your damage roll based on the dice type, okay? Your opponent will use their BAR, which is ballistic armor rating. We only have 3 stats to worry about: move, bar, and CQ. Leaders are extremely important in this game. Without your leaders, you don't have command rolls and things like that. So it's very important during army creation to think about heroes, standards, right? So it gives you the chance to do some nifty little banners. Standards are very important, and heroes, and then you have musicians, which give you bonuses to your rally. So it gives you better able to rally your units when they're disordered, gives them a little more survivability, okay? We only used infantry in this game, behemoths, artillery, siege weapons, all those things go by slightly different damage mechanics, okay? That'll be in the future. There was no magic. If you include magic into this, it becomes really interesting. Also a little more complex. And whoever loses 3 units is the loser, okay? And that's called the breaking point scenario. All right, folks, that was Mayhem. I hope you liked it. Sorry, this was just a teaser, but again, you know, it's a hot day. Phone is really overheating. So I'll talk to you guys soon. And don't forget, check out the Patreon, give it a chance, and join our patron over there, Richard. Shout out to Richard. Thank you, Richard, for your support. And thank you, all of you, my corner crew, for your support. We'll talk very soon.